Hey YouTube, it's Dimitri, and today I'm going to do a little Q&A. I recently got a question, we'll say, from William, who wanted to be anonymous. More or less their question is, I'm at a job, it's an okay job, but I'm really wanting to move to New York City. Should I quit my job and just move to New York, or should I continue to look for a job in New York City while living in another location? This is a pretty common question I get fairly often. There's kind of two variations of it. One is, I already have a job, and more or less I don't like my job and I want to move to New York, or I like my job, but to be honest, I'd rather live in New York City versus some other city. And then the second version of this is, Dimitri, I'm a student, I just graduated, or I'm graduating here like in a month, and I want to live in New York City, should I just move to New York City? So the first one's a little easier to answer. There are kind of two things to look at. The first one is cost. New York City is extremely expensive, and I know everybody says this, and a lot of people kind of roll their eyes and they're like, yeah, Dimitri, we know everyone says that. No, it's a lot more expensive. So just for a comparison of when I lived in Dallas versus when I lived in New York City, which I really lived in New Jersey, which is even cheaper than New York, it cost me double the cost of living. So think about how much all your expenses cost, your rent, your food, all that stuff, and just double it. That's really what it's going to cost to live in New York City on average. Unless you take a big, significant cost of living deduction. So say you're used to living in a really nice apartment in a nice neighborhood, now cut that in half. So now you're living in a mediocre neighborhood that might be a little unsafe, and your apartment's half the size. You might be able to get like 1.5 times the cost of living of your current location versus a not so good New York area. But that's the first one, is cost. So the second thing to consider is that employers don't like hiring people that are unemployed. So it's a weird conundrum, I know. I understand somewhat on the employer side that, you want someone that already has a job because that means somebody likes them, somebody wants them, they're willing to hire them. But the thing is that companies don't like to hire people who don't have a job. So if you quit your job that you're currently at, even if you were there for say 5 years, you were quite successful, you did well, and you quit your job and then you moved to New York and you're trying to find a job, a lot of times it can take you months and months and months to actually get a job. And so it gets worse the longer you wait, because now employers are like, why have you been unemployed for 3 months? Why have you been unemployed for 6 months? Why have you been unemployed for a year? Like, obviously something is wrong with you. The thing is, there might not be anything wrong with you, but they're not going to hire you because you're unemployed. So my advice is, if you currently have a job in another city and you're looking to move to New York City to get a job, is don't just quit your job and move to New York. Look for another job there, and then once you have a job lined up, then quit. A second option is, if you work in banking, you might try to get a job at a big bank that has an office in your current city, and then actually try to transfer to New York City through the same company. So the second scenario is, what if you're a student and you're graduating and you want to live and work in New York City and you don't have a job? Should you move to New York City? This one's a little dicey, so there's pros and cons to this. If you want to live in New York City and get a job in New York City, it is definitely easier to find a job when you are currently in New York City. However, if you went to school and your school is not in New York City or near New York City, it's going to be very, very expensive to be able to move to New York City and get a job there. And I actually had a friend that did this. He graduated from college with me and ended up moving to New York City, looked for a job. The thing is, it's really expensive and you burn through all your savings very quickly, and it can be very hard to find a job, especially right out of school, no matter where you went to school at. So my advice would be, try to find a job at a big bank in any city, so including New York. Try to find that job. But if you end up getting a job, say in Chicago or Dallas or Seattle or somewhere, try to get that job at that bank and then transfer from that company to New York within like a year to 2 years. But try to work at least a year before you request to be transferred. And I think that's the easiest way to actually get to New York City if you haven't already been there. So overall, if you're trying to move to New York City, I would definitely try to line a job up before you get there, because it is so expensive. If you don't have a ton of money, you're not super wealthy, it's not very practical to do. But try to network your way in through either a company or a bank, or try to find a job before you move. So that's my advice, guys. I hope you find it helpful. And as always, until next time. Thanks for watching my video. If you find it helpful, please like, share, and subscribe.